Welcome to my kitchen. Bad lighting aside, today I thought I'd do something different and do a little cook with me. It is fall, it is cold outside, the leaves are changing, and I love to bake. I'm so aware that I said cook with me, but this is actually more like a bake with me. And I just want to say right off the bat, I am not a chef, so these are not my own recipes. These are recipes that I get from other amazing creative chefs that I love and I've used for a while. So yeah, it should be super simple, and I figured since I feel like I rarely just talk with y'all, I'm gonna talk and I guess kind of like share my relationship with food, which is not extremely traumatic, so I don't think there's any need for a trigger warning or anything. But yeah, one thing about me, I love to be an efficient cooker. I'm like the prep and clean, bake and clean type person, so let's just go right into it. Okay, so please ignore my drying dishes. I cannot be bothered with it right now. We're going to be making two things today, and both of these things are very much fall vibes. I feel like it got cold and I was hit aggressively with soup fever. So soup has been on my mind, so we're making soup today, and we're making a long-standing favorite of mine, which is tomato soup. One thing that I love about tomato soup is not only is it very delicious, but it's also just super simple to make, and I am trying to slowly get back into my cooking groove. Not gonna lie, I have been eating out a lot, and not only has it taken a toll on my wallet, but I just feel like I am losing that interest in eating out right now, and I'm just not finding things outside of me cooking that I'm interested in eating. I feel like this is something that happens when I eat out a lot. I just kind of lose interest altogether with the prospect of finding new places and eating what's offered, I guess you could say. And the second thing is slightly more involved, but not really, but we're also going to be making some banana bread. Yay, banana bread's like one of my favorite things. I have a bomb-ass banana bread recipe from the internet. Obviously it's not mine, but I think it's just hands down the best banana bread recipe that I've found. So I have been loyal to it for a couple years now, and I'm gonna share it with y'all and probably link it too, because obviously it's not mine. So yes. I have no idea how cookfluencers and Nara Smith does this. Maybe my kitchen is not fit for video, but I don't know how to get myself in the frame and the stuff that I'm doing in the frame. I just preheated the oven and it just beeped. So we're going to chop up everything for the tomato soup, because that's honestly the easiest thing for me to do right now. And I was thinking that I will chop everything up, roast it, and while it's roasting, I'll prep the banana bread. That's kind of like where my head's at right now. So yeah, this is everything essentially that is going into my tomato soup. 4 Roma tomatoes, 1 vine tomato, and then we're doing 2 beefsteaks. This is a soup blend, so it has oregano, rosemary, thyme, and bay leaf. I'm going to be roasting the rosemary and the thyme with the rest of the ingredients, and then the bay leaf and the oregano I think is going to be boiled when I boil it after everything is roasted and blended up. Last main ingredient is going to be this bone broth. Generally speaking, I don't use bone broth because for the most part, I have had nasty experiences with bone broth and it's just not good. I don't know if y'all could hear it, but there's a little tinge in my voice because I'm actually battling a cold. So I figured I would try and add bone broth just because of its added health benefits and because I'm not feeling well. We're gonna try this bone broth. Wow. Should have done this angle the whole time. That's funny. I think we're gonna switch back to this OG angle as I chop everything up. We gotta rinse everything, so we're gonna do that real quick. So this tomato recipe is actually a Nara Smith recipe. I don't know how y'all feel about Nara Smith, but I love her. To me, Nara Smith seems like a working mom, and I feel like it's never given anything else. I feel like what she decides to do and how she decides to conduct her life is her business too. Personally, I think she just makes really good cooking content. 98% of the things she makes I have no intention of doing, but I think it's cool nonetheless to see her go through that process and to see her flourish doing it. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. Before seeing her tomato soup recipe. Honestly, I had never made tomato soup from scratch before. I had always just gotten it at store, and it was just like an easy comfort food that I could go and grab. I find that the ones that are made in store happen to be really good, so for the most part I never really felt a need to make it myself, just because I felt like the quality was already there in store. But she made making tomato soup seem so easy that I decided to try it myself, and I'm super happy that I did. So as I prep everything, I thought I would take a moment to kind of like talk about my relationship with food, just because I feel like, especially because of the content that I produce and how I sort of like conduct my life, a lot of people assume that I'm vegan or kind of have like this preconceived notion about how I eat, what I eat, and all that, which for the most part has never really had any type of significant impact to my life. But I think it's an interesting conversation that I don't really feel that qualified to talk about, but it's interesting to see the assumptions people make about how healthy I eat, because generally it is a positive response within their assumptions. But for the most part, I would say that I am an extremely average eater. One thing that has always been true about me is that I am a foodie. I was fortunate to grow up in a household that never really ever gave me the opportunity to have a complex about my eating. My mom has always been vegetarian, but growing up she has always cooked meat for my sister, my dad, and I, so I pretty much ate everything when I was younger. And I was also fortunate enough to have a mom that loves to cook, and she was actually a caterer for a large part of my childhood. Whoa! So not only did she love to cook, and she was also good at it, but it was also her main income when I was a child. So I feel like with that I got to see a lot of creativity within the kitchen, and I just grew a very profound love for food. Around my college years, I did try to be plant-based and vegan for health reasons, just because I'm also someone that used to really struggle with IBS, I believe, undiagnosed IBS, or just a lot of stomach issues, and so I thought that being vegan might help with that, and it really did. Honestly, it really did help in a lot of ways, but I quickly found out that being vegan was just not sustainable for me for a couple reasons. One being that it was just really expensive to keep up, especially in the ways that I wanted to eat, and secondly, I just love food, and cutting out certain things and food groups within my diet at the end of the day wasn't a super big deal. But also I felt like when I went back to being a non-vegan, I just felt a lot more whole, and I realized how much I actually appreciated those things. And so from that experience, I essentially decided that I would just try to be a lot more conscious with the things that I was eating, and really push to have a more nutritious and better balanced diet. But essentially I went back to eating whatever I wanted, and I really feel like that is what makes me happy. One thing I love about this recipe is it's not really a recipe, it's more so just a list of ingredients, and you can adjust it any way that you please for what you feel like would be delicious. For example, when I was picking out the tomatoes that I would use, I didn't really follow any specific number. It was more so just what I felt like would make enough soup, but also to what would create like a yummy balance. But I will say the tomatoes that I chose was heavily based off of Nara Smith and what tomatoes she used. I know she has a couple of different tomato recipes, but this is the one that I've made a couple times before that I really like, so I generally stick to the Romas, the vine tomatoes, and the beefsteak or slicer tomatoes. But I do think in her recipe she uses white onion. I don't really care for white onion, so I use a yellow onion, and I do half a yellow onion and half a red onion because I really love red onions. But yeah, so I would say my general relationship with food is overtly positive. I love trying new places, love trying new cuisines. I think this also comes from my mom, but I feel like there is just this irreplicable level of creation that comes from cooking, and the creativity it takes to make a new recipe and to play with a recipe and play with spices. And I think the process is really beautiful, and it's also delicious. I feel like it's one of those things where you could have so much fun creating it, and just as much fun, if not more fun, eating it. And I would say that was the only reason why I stayed vegan as long as I did, just because I feel like being vegan really brought back a lot of that creativity and that play with the food that I eat, the things that I choose to eat. I really feel like my palate shifted a lot when I was vegan, and that shift mainly surrounded vegetables. As much as I love meat and have no intention of removing that from my diet as of right now, I will say being vegan reminded me that it's all about seasoning and spices, and you can season and spice just about anything and it could be just as satisfying, if not more, than meat. Because I feel like a lot of times when people have a meat-based diet, it really is just centered around the taste of that meat. It has very little to do with the spices involved. So being vegan really allowed me to play with flavors, play with vegetables. If it weren't for being vegan, I might not even have picked up or decided to use or looked at, and it was just really fun. It was really fun. I will say being vegan was fun in that sense, but it just wasn't sustainable, and at some point along the road, I realized that I was compromising my health for the sake of eating clean and eating vegan. There were just many days where I didn't have anything to eat because I was the only one that was vegan in my family, and I didn't buy anything. I really didn't have the money to buy everything I needed to sustain myself, and that's when it really started to make less sense for me to be vegan. And by that time too, my stomach issues really did clear up, and I will say they have not ever gone back to how they were before that. And I think it's just because I have a lot more body consciousness, body awareness, and I know it makes me feel good now, and I know when to rein in a little bit and how to really just conduct myself so that I feel my best. So that was many, many years ago, and since then I have just been navigating a regular diet, I guess you can say. I feel like something that's made a super huge impact to my eating habits was moving out, which I did in 2021. I have lived outside of my parents' house for 3 years now. Feels like eternity, but it's only been 3 years. I feel like the pressure of having to feed myself has been both a blessing and a curse, because I definitely have complete control of what I consume when I consume it. And for those 3 years, I have also lived with my partner, so we definitely help out each other in that way, making sure that we eat or holding each other accountable or doing the exact opposite. We both like to eat, we both like junk food, and neither of us are honestly striving for perfection when it comes to what we eat, and so I feel like that really shows sometimes. If I were to compare how we ate in LA versus here, I would say there's definitely been a decline, and I think it's just because in moving and being in a completely new state, and also just being really busy with our jobs. When we moved here, we both worked full time, so I think all of that definitely led to less of a desire to cook, less of a desire to really fall into that habit of cooking. And another thing too, I really feel like compared to my apartment in LA, I don't like the kitchen as much here. I would say it's just a lot smaller than what I'm used to, and with cooking being such a creative and honestly like emotional process to me, I feel like that connection to my cooking space is important, and I just don't feel that here as much as I do at home at my parents, or as much as I did when I was in LA. And so that's something that I'm trying to work through, just because I do like this apartment. It definitely has its things. It's a little older, but I don't see myself moving anytime soon, and I really want to get back into that habit of really being intentional with the things that I eat and the things that I make and using what I have. This is kind of like my first real attempt in almost a year that I've been in here to revamp my cooking and really just start making things. Final thing that's really gonna get roasted was this garlic. And then, like I said, as they roast, I am going to put the rosemary and thyme in there with them and save the basil and the oregano for when it's boiling. Just so y'all see what we're working with here. As you could see, added garlic, pepper, rosemary, thyme. I did end up adding a little bit of basil. Garlic, right in the center. Yummy, yummy. This is going in the oven. Y'all, I'm actually very sad. You won't see it obviously, but I recorded like this whole section of me talking, and I got a lot more in depth about eating here versus how I was eating in LA, and I look up and realize none of it was recording. All of that to say, I just really want to start feeling better about the way that I eat. I do not think healthy looks any particular kind of way, and it's great that I can get away with the way that I look to a degree that people think that I eat a certain way, but I don't. As much as I do want to be better in the things that I eat and how I'm eating, but I think it goes both ways, because as much as that does benefit me, I still think it's a wrong way to think, and I've seen and I know many people who eat way better than me, and according to society, people are going to make their own assumptions about who they are and what they do and how they conduct themselves, and I think that's messed up. If I could cuss, I would, but we're not gonna cuss, so it's messed up. All in all, I was very blessed to be raised in a family that doesn't put any type of pressure on me in that way to eat a certain way or feel some type of way about who I am and my body because of what I do eat, and I think that's why I'm so confident today as far as what I do eat and what I'm doing, and even in my own skin and my body. Not to say that I don't have insecurities, because I definitely do, but yeah, overall, food has never been something that I've had this like anxiety or a negativeness around, and I really appreciate that. The soup is in the oven. I always put my roast on for 17 minutes, and I like to check in after that. I don't really base it off of a specific time, but for the most part, I know what roasted vegetables look like, and I know to what degree of roast that I want them to be, so I think it's gonna be about 25 minutes. I did roast them at 425. That is my golden number for roasting vegetables and things. So 425 for 20 to 25 minutes is what we're going off of. And that's the hardest part, to be honest. That's why I love tomato soup. After that, we're gonna take it out, let it cool. We're gonna blend it with all of its juices, all the oils and all that good stuff. I might actually blend it with the bone broth, but all I know is last time I made it, I also boiled it again on the stove. I can't tell you what that does, and I don't even remember if that was like a Nara Smith thing or if I looked up another recipe and that's what they had me do, but we're kind of just like on our own. This recipe is not that intuitive, but I do like to just kind of do my own thing when I cook and do what I feel. So yeah, that is it for the tomato soup. I think now we're going to move on to the banana bread, which is a little more involved. I always get so, oh my god, is this good? I always get so hungry when I cook, and to stop myself from eating whatever I'm cooking while cooking it, I usually have to eat before or something else in the middle. I also experience that thing when after you cook your entire dinner, you're no longer hungry, and that's probably the most frustrating and why sometimes it gets so expensive for me to cook, because I'll literally pay so much money to make something and it will look so delicious, and it will be delicious because I've eaten it the entire time I cooked it, but then as soon as I cook it, I just like don't care anymore. And I think it's just because I enjoy cooking sometimes more than actually eating the food, and it's very wasteful and very expensive, so I'm trying not to do that anymore. I've been like a cake fiend ever since I stepped foot in Seattle. I like can't go more than 2 days without my cake. It's insane. I just like need a sweet treat to get me by at all times. That's really what it is. I have 30 seconds until all of the vegetables are pretty much done. And I think I said 20 to 25 minutes earlier. I really meant 40 to 45 to 50 minutes of roasting. And so I did 2 sets of 17 and then I did 1/5. So whatever number in the 40s that adds up to is how long that they've been roasting. So there it is. So I'm gonna pull the vegetables out, and then they have to cool off just a little bit because I'm gonna blend them, but I don't wanna blend them straight out of the oven. And then while that's cooling off, then I think I'm going to start doing the banana bread. We'll see. All right, here it is straight out the oven. Literally looks exactly the same, except not. Everything is nice and roasted. That's about as much as we're gonna do for roasting. So we're gonna let this sit now. Let's make some bread. I saw this TikTok and it was like, what is one cooking habit that you learn from your family that you'll never forget? And I was thinking about that. I don't really think I have one, but in making this, I do remember one thing that my grandma showed me because she is a baker just like I. My mom is more cooking, my grandma is a baker for sure. She told me when you're making loaves, because she loves a loaf, flour it and then add a strip of parchment paper just because it's really easy to pull out. Then you could slice it, dice it, do whatever you want. I don't know if that's that unique, but I just remember her showing me that and I thought it was really cool and it stuck with me. So I think that is my cooking trick that has stuck with me. Yikes. That's gonna be a mess to clean up. Nice. And then, like I said, just a thin little piece. It's gonna go on like so. It doesn't have to cover the whole bottom. That's not the point. It's just so you could essentially lift the bread out. Let's start making this banana bread. There is liquid. These were once frozen bananas. The inspiration and my muse for the evening. Also, the recipe that I'm using originally called for walnuts and raisins. That's gross. I love a walnut, but I'm not a fan of raisins, and if I had walnuts actually, I probably would have added those in, but we're actually going to just do chocolate today because I do love chocolate. Also, a silly little thing that I will be doing, I'm gonna be measuring with this. All of my real treat eaters should recognize this container. This is the little glass that those petite pot chocolate mousse little desserts come in. I just can never bring myself to throw away a glass jar, so I decided to keep them, and turns out that they are all allegedly 1/4 of a cup or 4 ounces. So I'm just gonna be using this to measure because I actually don't know what happened to all my measuring cups. They kind of got lost when we moved. This recipe actually only calls for ingredients, honestly, on like cup scale. So for the sugar, we're just gonna do 3 of these. It's 3/4 of a cup, and this is gonna be our measuring cup for the day. And I feel like I know that I'm ready to go back into a cooking era when I start looking for bananas and storing them in the freezer, just because I feel like it's always one thing that I always come back to when I want to start cooking again, or when I feel like there's an imbalance between eating out and cooking at home. Also, something that did not make it to this apartment is my electric mixer, and I've been wanting a stand mixer, but they're so expensive. They're insane, and so until I can no longer move my little fingers and flick my wrist, I will just be using a whisk. And for any real ass listeners out there, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in to me. Comment below what your like comfort food is, and if you're a cook, what's your like comfort item, meal, food to cook yourself? Because for me, I would definitely say, as far as baking, it's the banana bread. Outside of that, I love cooking sweet potatoes. I love roasting vegetables. Like I said, I'm also kind of a baker, so I love a good roasted vegetable blend with the onions, potatoes, bell peppers, garlic. Tilapia is one of those things that also just kind of like reminds me of my childhood. It's like a comfort thing to cook. It's super easy to cook too, easy to season and to prep. So I would say sweet potatoes, vegetable blend, tilapia, Brussels sprouts. That kind of goes, that exists within that vegetable blend. I just forgot. That's like my go-to meal. Dapo's not here right now, so he can't tell you how amazing of a chef I am, but if he were, I bet he would say that I'm the best chef that he has ever come across, and no one does it better than me, and he's so grateful that I'm his girlfriend and that he loves me so much, and all of that jazz. Hold on, y'all, I'm about to lock in. These are so mushy. I think I'm just gonna like, oh my goodness. I'm just gonna slice the side, I think, and try to peel them open over the bowl. A little lame, so I'm sorry if this is boring to you. Blah, 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 blah. I apologize. Psych! I switched my angle. Look at these freaking bananas, man. Okay. Oh, scary. I feel like bananas should not look like that. Okay. In you go. Whoopsies. Boop. All right. So it says mash it to about the consistency of applesauce. I don't know if we're gonna get there today. I just realized that I messed up my measurements. After seeing how much flour is in that container, I think this is actually a half a cup, which would be 4 ounces, not a fourth a cup, which means I put double the amount of sugar in there. I have way too much sugar in that mixture.
A cup of flour, and then I think your sugar ratio will be fine, because I don't think...
Y'all, I think Mama Mel just saved the day. We're going rogue. I most definitely fudged up that recipe. Whoopsies. But lucky for me, my mother is smart and beautiful and intelligent and wise, and she has weighed in on the situation. I should have known when I was mixing it, you know, and I was like, oh, this is really coarse. It was just about a half a cup over the amount of sugar that it was supposed to be. So instead of adding more butter, I'm going to actually add peanut butter, and that is going to bring back, I think, a little bit of that smoothness and level out what's going on in there. It's crunchy and salted, which luckily for me, I didn't add salt into my flour yet, which means that I'm probably just going to do a little less salt since there's going to be salt in the peanut butter. Never done this before, so we're actually just like learning as we go at this point. And then I'm gonna guesstimate, because heaven forbid that I use a measuring cup, I'm gonna guesstimate about a half a cup of peanut butter, mix that in, and then I think just because the batter right now is super duper runny, I'm also going to do a little more flour, and we're also going to slightly up the amount of baking soda as well. The only thing that will make me not want to eat this banana bread after it comes out is if it's a brick. I think I might have just saved it a little bit. All right, y'all see this? I feel like adding more peanut butter is what's going to make it super duper heavy. Putting that away, back to the flour. All right. Well, that was tragic. Honestly, I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. I'm not super sad about what it's looking like now though. So into the prepped tin we go. And I have a few more tins that I will probably end up using. And you never want to fill it up to the tippy top because it rises. Maybe it's like 3/4 of the way. That is something else that I learned from my grandma. Yay! Banana bread. So that's set to bake for 55 to 60 minutes. It is time to refocus on the tomato soup. Blender. Everything had a really long time to cool off, so I'm just gonna throw it all in here. There's like the right way to do things, and then there's the way that I'm literally doing them. But that seems to be the theme for cooking today. Already cleaned up everything from the banana bread making. There is just no way that I can move forward without doing that. Woo! Yay! Want to get as much of that goodness as possible. Garlic. Mmm, delicious. Let's see if I could do... Oh. Okay. Wait a minute. Mmm. Tastes so yummy. Yummy in my tummy. Mmm, yummy, yummy. There's just like a few more in the center that need to come out. So this is the easy part. Bone broth going in. We're gonna start with like half of this. This is what it looks like. The color is quite light, and I don't know why. We're gonna cook it in here, and I think I'm gonna add the rest of the bone broth just because I don't like a super duper thick soup, I'm not gonna lie. This is also where I'm gonna add in my bay leaf and some more of the oregano. Based off of the size of the soup, I think 1 bay leaf is great, and then I'm crushing it. Oregano. I also have this Italian seasoning blend. Guys, I'm gonna be really sad if I end up not liking it, because that's tragic. I did not just cook for the last 3 hours to not like the soup. Okay, it's cooking, so we're gonna try a little bit of it. Needs hella salt. Salt is coming through. I feel like I shouldn't salt it anymore. I think it needs to be peppered and maybe onion and garlic powdered a bit. I'm seriously so sad. I should have tasted the bone broth before just dumping it in here blindly. I'm gonna leave it alone because it's actually not that bad now. And I know when I eat it with a little bit of olive oil and then balsamic. And I know that's also going to add to the flavor, and feta, which I forgot to get. The color shifted into a darker orangish red, which is more of the color that I was hoping and looking for. I honestly think it just needed to cook a little longer. I'm gonna let it do its thing on a back burner. All right, y'all, my time is running out. Ooh. I got 1 minute of the time that I set for the banana bread. I don't think it's done because I just checked it. The tomato soup is done, so I'm gonna add a shot tomorrow of how everything turned out because it's dark outside and I don't have good lighting anymore. And to be real, I told y'all I cook and then I don't want to eat it, so I think this is actually going to be more of a tomorrow feast. And so I'm going to show y'all my tomato soup tomorrow when everything looks amazing, and I'm going to show you the banana bread, which I'm probably going to have for breakfast. So pretty much I just want to wrap it up here right now and say thank you y'all for watching and listening to me yap. Literally said shut up. Anyways, like I said, I know this is very different from the content that I usually make, but I'm trying new things as my days are shifting, my schedule, everything is shifting, and I'm putting out a lot of Earth Girl hiking, vlogging content on my Instagram and TikTok right now, just because the short form has been a lot easier for me to manage, and I do want that to all come here as well, so stay tuned for more of that. I really appreciate y'all, and until next time, happy healing. All right, bye y'all. It is a bit dense, not gonna lie, and I think that is from the amount of peanut butter that I put in it, but surprisingly it's not as sugary as it could be. There is a lot of sugar. All right, we're gonna try the soup now. I made this sad little bread grilled cheese situation. It is very hot. I'm holding it with my fingernails. We made that to try with. Probably shouldn't do this in white. This is a bad idea. It's a bad idea. Actually quite good. This is a couple days after I made it, and I feel like the flavor settled a lot more than day one. I really wasn't feeling it day one, I'm not gonna lie. Same. Yeah. So I do not have the ingredients right now, but in the past I love adding balsamic vinegar and feta to my tomato soup. I added a little bit of olive oil to this one, but the balsamic vinegar just brings like a really nice balance, I think, to the sweetness of the tomatoes. Kind of like a tomato vinaigrette situation. And then the feta is just delicious. I feel like it's a great cheese for tomato soup. So I'm going to close the video out here. Thank you so much for baking with me, perhaps. Baking and cooking with me. This was very fun for me because I got to eat everything. I wish I could share that with you. But this is the internet. All of my items were Doppel approved, if anyone was curious. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time closing this video out right now. So I'm gonna just say goodbye. And is this? And as always, happy healing. All right, bye y'all.